I bet at some point you've walked away from a Spanish conversation thinking, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say that? I knew the words, I just couldn't pull them out fast enough. It happens to all of us. So today we're diving into how to improve your spontaneous Spanish speaking skills so that you can think on your feet and respond faster in Spanish conversation. But first of all, if you're new to me, te doy una gran bienvenida. My name is Erica. I'm a former Spanish medical interpreter turned Spanish teacher and language coach, now living and loving life abroad here in Mexico. And for the past 5+ years, I've been working with Spanish learners to go from nervous small talk to heartfelt conversations with their family, friends, and members of their community. So if that is something that you're looking to do, then you can start by hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss a video. So why does this happen? Why do you freeze when someone asks you a question in Spanish and you know the words or the phrases that you need to respond? Well, it happens for a few reasons. First, there's the pressure to respond quickly. The words may not be readily available to you. They may be sitting somewhere in your passive memory. So recall is difficult, and you have to recall them and then figure out how to put them together and then get everything out in a logical way fast enough to keep the conversation flowing smoothly. And that can feel overwhelming, and sometimes it just doesn't work. And then second, there's the overthinking. You may start to wonder, is this the right conjugation that I'm about to use? Am I about to make a mistake? And then by the time you figure it out, the conversation has moved on or just gotten a little bit awkward because of the silence. And let's not forget translating in your head. Now, sometimes this is going to be normal, but if you are constantly, for every single thing that you need to say, having to think in English first and then translate that into Spanish, that is going to slow you down because you're trying to work with two languages at the same time. But you can improve your spontaneous speaking skills with practice. In fact, one of our students in our one-on-one program had that exact transformation.
But I think the most important thing was getting over the deer in the headlights feeling, getting over that moment where before I had to think, okay, now I have to speak Spanish. And now it's more natural when someone says something to me in Spanish that I just can reply.
Amazing work, Karen. Let me show you how you can do the same. But first, let me tell you that if you would like an easily digestible visual format of all of the elements that you need to reach conversational fluency, and also a healthy dose of inspiration from other students that you will surely be able to relate to, then you can download my free guide, Start, your 5-step roadmap to Spanish fluency. You can find that in the link below or by going to ericareallanguage.com/start. Bueno, comencemos, amigos. The first way that you can improve your spontaneous speaking skills is by using what I like to call conversational practice loops. So let's talk about what in the world that is, and then we'll dive into exactly how you can create them. Conversational practice loops are basically just repetition within conversation. So we're not talking about repetition through flashcards or grammar drills or doing the same exercises over and over again. Although those things aren't necessarily bad, they can actually give you a strong foundation. But they don't always prepare you for the dynamic, real-time nature of an actual conversation. Conversational practice loops are different because they involve practicing the same type of interaction repeatedly. For example, you may find yourself needing to frequently introduce yourself to new people in Spanish, or very frequently wanting to order food in Spanish at a restaurant. By repeating these scenarios in conversation, you're creating quick recall. The more you practice, the faster and more natural those words will come to you when you're in the real situation. Conversational practice loops also have the advantage of giving you a little bit of real-world healthy pressure. So unlike other types of repetition where you're maybe repeating phrases to yourself or working with flashcards, real conversations come with a certain level of unpredictability and urgency. You're motivated to respond in the moment, and that healthy pressure helps your brain adapt to retrieving the words faster. So now that we know what conversational practice loops are, how do we create them? The Prepare, Practice, Present method is my step-by-step approach for creating these practice loops and building your confidence and skills for speaking Spanish in specific situations. Let's break it down. First, you prepare. So this is where you set the foundation. So you start by identifying a specific topic or scenario that you would like to focus on. Like in the examples that we mentioned earlier, this could be introducing yourself or ordering food at a restaurant, for example. From there, you'll need to gather some of the vocabulary and the phrases that you'll need for that specific situation. So let's imagine that I want to introduce myself. I'm talking to a stranger and I anticipate some questions that I'm going to be asked as I walk around here in Mexico because I don't look like everybody else. So maybe I anticipate that if I strike up a conversation with a stranger, I'm going to be asked, ¿De dónde eres? ¿Cuánto tiempo llevas aquí? ¿A qué te dedicas? And so I may prepare to say, soy de Estados Unidos. Llevo 11 años aquí. Soy profesora de español. Tengo una escuela en línea para adultos. So how do you build all these phrases in the first place? Well, you can use any resources that you like. You can use online dictionaries, for example, or a person to help you build all these phrases. The goal here is just to get familiar with some of the words and phrases that you're likely to need. And you can go as basic or as extensive with this as you like. A lot will depend on your level and what you're already capable of. So think, what are those situations? Where am I normally? Who am I usually talking to when I freeze and I'm unable to give a quick response? That will give you an idea of what topic you can start with. Now it's time to practice. And the first part of your practice can indeed be just with yourself. Now that you have your toolkit, so your phrases, you can repeat these out loud. You can practice in front of a mirror. You can even role play scenarios with yourself, playing both parts. I've done it many times. It works really well. But then if you have a language partner or a friend or a teacher who can help you practice this, that is going to be ideal. And that person can have these role play conversations with you. And this is your opportunity to ask questions. If they kind of throw something at you that you weren't expecting from a different angle, you don't know what it means, you can ask, you can make notes, you can expand your script or your notes that you already have, right? Because now you're getting some more variety. You're getting closer and closer to being prepared for the real world scenario. Now it's time to present. This is where you take everything that you've prepared and practiced and put it to the test in a real or simulated conversation. Now, what differentiates this from practice is that when you are in presentation mode, try not to pause and ask questions or overthink anything. You've gone through that, and now it's time to just have a conversation. Even if you're still working with that same person who is helping you practice, and this is a simulated conversation, this is the time to flow with the conversation and not worry so much about mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Focus on making yourself understood and understanding and speaking back and forth. The beauty of the present stage is that it creates that unpredictability and urgency that we mentioned before. You do have to think on your feet because you're not completely sure what's going to be said to you. But because of the preparation and practice that you've done before, you feel so much more ready than the first time you went at it. And of course, your ultimate presentation comes when you are in real life scenarios. For example, if you've been working on introducing yourself, then you're going to want to go out and try to strike up conversations. If I go out of my house right now and I go to the park and I sit down and I strike up a conversation with a stranger about the weather, right? Está haciendo frío hoy. Aquí en San Cristóbal siempre hace frío en enero. Ah, sí, aquí hace mucho frío. ¿Y tú eres de aquí, de San Cristóbal? Sí, ¿y tú? They're going to ask me where I'm from. We're going to have the whole conversation that I wanted to have, right? Because I wanted to practice introducing myself. That's just how it's going to go. And then I do that with someone else later. And I'm creating these opportunities to practice the specific thing that I want to work on. I want my self-introduction to just flow naturally. I don't want to be thinking in English and then translating. I just want to automatically be able to say some things about me that come up all the time. Okay? Same thing if you are wanting to order at a restaurant in Spanish and you just kind of get tongue-tied. You have to put yourself now in that situation as often as you can. Hey, that's a really fun way to practice Spanish, right? So beyond just looking at the menu and saying what you want, maybe you want to try to strike up a conversation with the waiter. ¿Cuál es el mejor platillo aquí? ¿Qué platillo me recomienda? Purposely try to converse as much as you can. And that is how you create these conversational loops going from prepare, practice to present. It works extremely well for improving your spontaneous speaking skills in the situations for which you know you need it the most. But there is a second way to improve your spontaneous speaking skills, and it's actually a lot simpler than the first. And this one is simply creating more natural opportunities to use your Spanish. Spanish. So this is different than preparing and practicing for a specific situation. This is just about giving yourself more opportunities to use your Spanish in your everyday life. Because after all, to get good at spontaneous speaking, you just have to put in the reps and be in situations where you have to speak spontaneously often. But if you've been doing a lot of conversational practice loops on top of this, you are going to do so much better in these completely random situations because you're building up your vocabulary, you're building up your grammatical skills, and your overall confidence in a controlled way. So how can you create more opportunities? Try to strike up conversations. You can even ask someone for directions when you already know where you're going. Get to know your neighbors and engage in casual conversations with them as often as possible. Even if you're not in a Spanish-speaking country, you have so many options. You can attend local meetups or cultural events where Spanish is spoken. You may have friends or family members who know the language, who you can regularly speak to, meet up with, or even have a Zoom conversation on a regular basis. You can join a virtual conversation club where you can practice with others in a supportive environment. For example, the students in our one-on-one program really like the variety of first practicing their conversational practice loops with their one-on-one teacher, but also having the opportunity to connect daily if they would like to group speaking sessions with a variety of other teachers and other learners on a variety of topics. That's where their spontaneous speaking skills get put to the test. Even though those speaking sessions have topics, when they get into true spontaneous speaking mode, they go off topic, and we absolutely love to see that because it's proof that the method works. So in summary, you'll use those conversational practice loops to prepare for those specific situations that you always encounter. And then you'll work on creating more natural opportunities to use your Spanish even more than you are now. Both of these methods work together and they will help you improve your spontaneous speaking skills. So all that's left for you to do is start. And that is the name of the free guide that I am offering to you. Start your 5-step roadmap to Spanish fluency. You can grab that at the link below so that you have a visual format of everything that you need to do to reach conversational fluency. Or you can go to ericarealanguage.com/start. Afterwards, you can check out this video next. Hasta la próxima.